The safe house. The safe house secret. My father wasn't a hero witness. He was the mafia's greatest thief. My name is Cora Nolan, and for the last 12 years I've been living a lie in witness protection. We live in Silver Springs, Oregon, a town so small and forgettable it's practically invisible. We are the Millers here. My father, David Miller, real name Damian Nolan, is the reason we're here. The official story, the one the U.S. Marshals told me when I was 16, is that Dad was a hero witness who testified against the notorious East Coast Mafia boss, Salvatore Sal Moretti, dismantling his criminal empire. Dad is quiet, paranoid, and fiercely protective. He runs a small, nondescript hardware store a world away from the fast-paced, dangerous life he supposedly left behind. I resent this life. I resent the isolation, the constant fear, and the fact that I had to give up a promising career in forensic science to become Cora Miller, a community college dropout who works shifts at a local diner. The trigger one rainy Tuesday. A new customer came into the diner. He was a distinguished older man in a crisp suit, a jarring sight in this town of flannel and jeans. He introduced himself as Mr. Alistair Reed, a retired journalist writing a book on successful WITC participants. He cornered me near the counter. Your father, Damian Nolan, is a fascinating subject, Cora. His testimony was instrumental in putting away a lot of very bad men. He doesn't talk about that life, Mr. Reed, I said, my voice carefully neutral, sticking to the script. Reed leaned in, his eyes sharp. That's because the WWITSEC story is incomplete, Cora. The official narrative says your father helped the feds recover everything, the cash, the diamonds, the ledgers. But the street story says Sal Moretti's fortune, $300 million in untraceable assets, vanished the night your father disappeared. My heart hammered. I dismissed him, but the seed of doubt was planted. The safe house breach. That night I couldn't sleep. I crept down to the basement, a place Dad always kept strictly off limits. He claimed the wiring was dangerous, but I knew he kept his past hidden down there. I found the trigger, a loose floorboard beneath a stack of old paint cans. Beneath it wasn't a gun or a ledger, but a small, heavy safety deposit box key and a faded photograph. The photograph showed my father, younger, handsome, and impeccably dressed, standing not with federal agents, but beside a man with Sal Moretti's unmistakable, menacing grin. The photo was dated 2 months before his supposed testimony. He wasn't a witness. He was a high-ranking insider. Then the security system, a simple consumer-grade setup, flashed red. Perimeter breach. I heard the sound of a heavy, precise impact against the back door. Someone was trying to break in, and they weren't feds. My father raced down the stairs, his face etched with 12 years of suppressed terror. Cora, what are you doing down here? His voice was a raw whisper. The alarm went off, Dad. Who's out there? He shoved me toward the small, reinforced storm cellar door. It's the past. Get in the cellar. Don't come out until the U.S. Marshals arrive. Trust no one, especially not who you think you trust. He slammed the cellar door and locked it from the outside. The discovery. I heard the rapid, muffled sounds of a professional break-in, then voice, slow, Italian, accented and furious. Where is the old man and where is the cipher? A voice snarled. My father's voice, defiant. I don't know what you're talking about. A sickening crunch followed. Then the sound of glass breaking and the furious voice again, closer to the cellar door. He was working with the consigliere on the final transfer. The only person who knows where the $300 million is him. The truth hit me with the force of a physical blow. My father hadn't testified against the mafia. He had stolen their entire fortune, $300 million, and vanished into WWITSEC. He wasn't a hero witness. He was the greatest thief in their history. I realized the U.S. Marshals weren't protecting him. They were protecting the asset they thought they could eventually recover. Through a small crack in the cellar door, I saw my father being dragged away. The man holding him wasn't Sal Moretti, but a younger, brutal man I immediately recognized from the news. Marco Moretti, Sal's heir. Marco paused right in front of the cellar door and spoke to his men. Find the daughter. She's the key to the cipher. Don't touch the house. The feds will be here soon. Just the girl. Marco Moretti knew I existed. He knew my name, and he believed I held the key to the $300 million. I clutched the deposit box key in my hand. I had seconds. The U.S. Marshal sirens were finally wailing in the distance. I unlocked the cellar door, crept out, and saw the wreckage. My father was gone. On the floor near the broken glass was a single silver object dropped by Marco Moretti, a miniature broken composite symbol of the New Orleans architecture scandal I had read about years ago. The mafia, my father's theft, and an international corporate conspiracy were all connected. I was now alone, hunted, and holding the only clue. The U.S. Marshals swarmed the safe house, treating me with careful suspicion. I maintained the panicked daughter narrative. My father, David Miller, Damian Nolan, was violently abducted by men with thick accents. I carefully omitted the mention of Marco Moretti, the $300 million, and the broken compass symbol. The lead marshal agent, Helen Shaw, was sharp and didn't believe the simple abduction story. She focused on the missing asset. Cora, we need you to tell us everything your father said or did. Agent Shaw insisted, her eyes locking onto mine. Damian Nolan wasn't just a witness, he was a key figure in Moretti's operation. He was an asset valuable to us and dangerous to them. He just said, trust no one, and shoved me into the cellar. I lied, clutching my fabricated innocence. He told me the marshals would protect me. Agent Shaw's expression hardened. We are relocating you immediately. You are a prime target, Cora. The asset is missing, and you are the only leverage we have. I knew their asset wasn't my father's safety. It was the $300 million. I had to escape their protection before they realized I was already looking for the money. The escape and the key. I used my forensic science background to plan my immediate exit. While being escorted from the destroyed safe house, I discreetly jammed the electronic lock on the marshal's vehicle using a simple magnetic shim and a pre-coded sequence on my burner phone. The moment the car halted at a traffic light, I threw myself out, running into the dense Oregon woods. I needed to understand the clues left behind the safety deposit box key and the term the cipher. I realized the key wasn't for a standard bank. The key was heavy brass and bore a stylized symbol, a crossed sword's crest. I remembered reading about a secretive high-end private security vault, popular with organized crime figures in the 90s, known simply as the Vault, located in Miami, Florida. My father wouldn't have kept the key in Oregon if he hadn't planned to retrieve something from his past life. Miami was a major hub for the Moretti organization. I booked a red-eye flight using cash and fake credentials I'd created years ago, just in case. Miami and the Vault. I arrived in Miami and located the old unmarked building that housed the Vault. It was discreet, heavily secured, and definitely not a bank. I presented the key. The attendant, a huge man with a silent, professional demeanor, simply scanned the key and directed me to a private underground room. Inside the room, the key unlocked a heavy, personalized vault box. I felt a surge of adrenaline mixed with fear. This was my father's secret life. The box was empty except for 3 items. 1, a prepaid, fully activated burner phone, a modern piece of tech that contradicted the vintage key. 2, a leather-bound journal filled with cryptic notations, mathematical formulas, and coded entries. This had to be the cipher. 3, a small polished silver locket containing a faded photograph of my mother who died when I was 7. I immediately turned on the phone. It had one pre-programmed contact labeled Architect. Decoding the journal, I retreated to a cheap motel room and began examining the journal. My forensic skills, though unpracticed, were still sharp. The notations were complex, blending financial accounting codes with geological survey data. The breakthrough came when I realized the seemingly random numbers were geographical coordinates overlaid with historical stock market data. The coordinates were all clustered around a specific region, New Orleans, Louisiana. The Mafia's $300 million wasn't cash or diamonds. It was a complex portfolio of untraceable real estate assets purchased using insider knowledge and laundered through dummy corporations. The cipher was a deconstructed map of the hidden fortune secured by the most inaccessible method possible, a memory palace of numbers only my father could interpret, or only someone with high-level forensic training like me. Suddenly, the phone rang. The pre-programmed contact architect was calling. I answered, my voice disguised with a vocal modulator I had brought from Oregon. Who is this? I am the one who built the foundation for Damian Nolan's new life, a smooth, cultured voice replied. Damian is gone, and the cipher is active. You need to understand the broken compass. It's not just a symbol. It's the master key to the New Orleans assets. The broken compass, the symbol Marco Moretti dropped at the safe house, was the key to the fortune. Who are you? I demanded. I am the architect. I handled the restructuring of Moretti's assets into the real estate portfolio. Your father and I were partners. You have the map. I have the blueprint. Meet me at the St. Jude's Convent in New Orleans. Come alone or your father pays the ultimate price. The connection cut out. The missing piece. I now had the map, the cipher, the threat, Marco Moretti, and an alleged partner, the architect who held the final piece, the broken compass. But as I packed the journal, the photograph of my mother in the locket caught my eye. The locket had a tiny, almost invisible scratch on the back. It was a single engraved initial E. My mother's name was Susan. Who was E? And why would my father carry a locket with a different initial? I realized my mother's past death, my father's hero witness story, and the $300 million theft were all tied to a dangerous conspiracy. To save my father, I had to travel into the heart of the mafia's lost empire and confront the architect. I arrived in New Orleans, the heat and humidity, oppressive feeling instantly exposed. This was the territory where the Moretti organization had laundered their colossal fortune. Following the architect's instruction, I went to the St. Jude's Convent, a beautiful dilapidated structure on the edge of the French Quarter. The place felt abandoned, smelling of dust and incense. I found the architect waiting in the convent's courtyard, a cloistered garden choked with jasmine. He was not the hardened criminal I expected, but a sophisticated, impeccably dressed man in his late 50s, holding a delicate silver object, a miniature broken compass, identical to the one Marco Moretti dropped. "Welcome to the beginning of the end, Cora," the architect greeted me, his voice still smooth and practiced. "I am Elias Vance." My blood ran cold. Elias Vance. The name resonated instantly. He wasn't just my father's partner. He was the fugitive scientist, whose biotech patent had been the target of the Omnicorp merger exposed by Ethan Bellwether in the biggest corporate scandal of the decade. The world knew him as a brilliant hunted man connected to international financial crimes. The full truth. I laid the journal, the cipher, on the stone bench. My father, Damian Nolan, was kidnapped by Marco Moretti. He wants the $300 million. "The $300 million is irrelevant to Marco," Elias Vance stated, running his finger along the broken compass. "He wants the cipher destroyed. He wants the entire audit trail buried. He knows the real value of the money is the list of names attached to the laundering scheme." Elias explained the true structure. The theft. Damian Nolan, my father, was Moretti's consigliere, the financial genius, not a foot soldier. He and Elias Vance, the architect, then a legitimate financial consultant, worked together to create a massive, untraceable real estate portfolio for the mafia. The switch. When Sal Moretti was arrested, my father saw his chance. He liquidated the assets and converted the $300 million into a decentralized real estate portfolio across New Orleans, effectively stealing the money and erasing the audit trail. The cover. Elias, already targeted by corporate enemies over his biotech patent, helped my father construct the hero witness narrative, using his own offshore contacts to secure the WITC spot. In exchange, my father gave Elias access to the cipher, the map, to the fortune as a safety deposit against future threats. "The broken compass is not a key," Elias revealed, handing it to me. "It's a specialized USB drive. It contains the architect's blueprint, the dummy corporations, the legal loopholes, and the exact physical locations of all 42 properties in New Orleans that comprise the $300 million. The mother's secret." "Why the initial E on the locket?" I pressed, showing him the jewelry I took from the Miami vault. "My mother was Susan, but my father kept a locket with an E." Elias looked at the locket, his composure finally cracking. "Your mother Susan was not the first woman Damien loved in the WITSEC program," Elias confessed, his voice heavy with regret. "When Damien went into WITSEC, he was secretly married to my sister, Eliza Vance." Eliza Vance. The initial E was for Elias's sister. The family tie. Elias and Damien were not just partners, they were brothers-in-law. The U.S. Marshals moved Damien and Susan to Silver Springs, Oregon, but they never moved Eliza. They made her a ghost asset because she knew too much about the money. The Marshals told Damien that Eliza died in a car accident a few months after his relocation, the official WITSEC cover story for witnesses who become liabilities. My father's paranoia. It wasn't about the mafia, I realized, feeling a terrible ache of understanding. It was about the Marshals. He thought they killed Eliza to keep the secret of the cipher. And that's why he needed the $300 million, Elias finished. It wasn't just money. It was his leverage to force the Marshals to tell him the truth about Eliza's death. Marco's trap. Just as I connected the broken compass USB to the laptop to download the blueprint, the convent's main door burst open. It wasn't the police. It was Marco Moretti and two of his enforcers. They had tracked Elias's phone to the only secluded historic building in the area. "The architect," Marco hissed, advancing slowly. "My father sends his regards. We will take the cipher, the blueprint, and the woman. The old man is waiting." Elias Vance shoved me hard toward a hidden service door. "Go, take the blueprint. The money is hidden in plain sight. They won't risk a firefight here." Marco's enforcers grabbed Elias. As they dragged him away, Elias shouted a final critical clue, the clock tower. The final asset, the proof of Eliza's death, it's hidden in the first property you find on the cipher. I scrambled through the service door and out into the crowded streets of the French Quarter, clutching the cipher journal and the broken compass USB. I now knew the terrifying truth: my father was a thief driven by revenge for his lost wife, and my life in WITSEC was a byproduct of the mafia's lost fortune and the marshal's internal cover-up. I had to follow the cipher's map to find the first asset and secure the proof of Eliza's death before Marco could find me. Fleeing the French Quarter, I found a cramped, secure location to analyze the data. I connected the broken compass USB to the burner laptop. Elias Vance's architect's blueprint was a sophisticated digital overlay mapping the 42 properties across New Orleans that constituted the $300 million fortune. I matched the coordinates from my father's journal, the cipher, with the property addresses on Elias's blueprint. The first property listed was a beautiful but disused historic clock tower near the Garden District. Elias's last desperate clue echoed in my mind: the clock tower. The final asset, the proof of Eliza's death, it's hidden in the first property you find on the cipher. My father hadn't just secured the fortune in this building, he had hidden the leverage he planned to use against the U.S. Marshals, the proof that they had orchestrated the death of his first wife, Eliza Vance. Infiltrating the clock tower. The clock tower was a secured historic landmark officially owned by a local preservation society, one of Elias's many shell corporations. I used the specialized entry code Elias must have programmed into the broken compass USB. The code worked, granting me access through a low-profile maintenance door. The interior was dusty and silent. The lower floors were devoted to a small private museum exhibit, but the core of the building was the clock mechanism itself, a massive copper and brass engine rising through the center of the tower. I realized the fortune wasn't in the tower. The tower was the vault that contained the final physical piece of the puzzle. Using my forensic instincts, I scanned the mechanism. The complex arrangement of gears and pendulums had one small, modern anomaly: a nearly invisible RFID tag embedded in one of the counterweights. I ran the tag through a reader on my laptop. The RFID tag was a GPS tracker actively transmitting its location, but its movement was minuscule, synchronized with the swinging of the pendulum. Marco's trap. Just as I documented the tracker, the heavy main door of the clock tower groaned shut and the security lights came on, bathing the floor in harsh white light. Marco Moretti stood there, flanked by his men. He wasn't tracking Elias. He was tracking me. We intercepted the architect's signal, Cora. Marco said, his voice cold and triumphant. He was a good partner until he stole from us. But we know he planned this rendezvous. Marco stepped forward, pointing to the laptop. The broken compass is only half the map. The old man told us you have the journal, the cipher. We need the complete ledger, Cora. Where is it? The $300 million is gone, Marco. It's tied up in real estate. I countered, stalling for time, my hand hovering near the clock's controls. The money is secondary. Marco roared, his patience snapping. The assets, the ledger, they reveal our clients, the politicians, the judges. That's the real fortune. Give me the cipher. As Marco advanced, I yanked the small, heavy, RFID-tagged counterweight off the pendulum, simultaneously throwing the main lever for the clock's winding mechanism. The clock mechanism roared to life, the massive gears starting to turn, flooding the stairwell with a metallic shriek. The ancient engine served as a perfect chaotic distraction. The chase and the clue. I bolted up the narrow winding service stairs. Marco's men followed, hampered by the noise and the confined space. I reached the clock face, level, a circular platform surrounded by massive panes of glass. I was trapped. I looked down at the small, heavy counterweight in my hand. It was an RFID tracker. Why would my father tag the key to the fortune? Then I remembered his parting words. Trust no one, especially not who you think you trust. I quickly pried open the counterweight with a maintenance tool. Inside, it wasn't a memory card, but a tightly rolled piece of paper, a short handwritten note. They used the crest. Final proof is in the lakefront asset. Don't trust Shaw. The note was written in my father's distinctive, careful handwriting. The crest. The symbol on the key I found in Oregon. Lakefront asset. A specific property address on the architect's blueprint. Shaw, Agent Helen Shaw, the lead U.S. Marshal who claimed to be protecting me. My father knew the Marshals were compromised. He knew Agent Shaw was not protecting the WITSEC asset. She was a mole for a third party, possibly the Moretti organization, or the even more shadowy figures revealed in the ledger. The new target. I now knew my target was the lakefront asset, but I had a problem. Marco Moretti was blocking the only way down. I threw the retrieved note into my jacket pocket and aimed the heavy brass counterweight through one of the clock face panes. The glass shattered outward, creating a distraction and an escape route. Marco reached the platform just as I was rigging a safety line to one of the central support beams. He grabbed my arm. The cipher is worthless without the rest of the ledger. Cora, tell me where the full list of names is. It's gone, Marco. It's encrypted. You'll never find the fortune. I lied, kicking off the platform and rappelling down the outside of the clock tower past the stunned onlookers on the street below. As I landed and disappeared into a nearby alley, I saw Agent Helen Shaw's black unmarked SUV pulling up to the clock tower. She hadn't come to save me. She had come to intercept Marco and now to find me. I was being hunted by the Mafia and the very agency sworn to protect me. I had to get to the lakefront asset before Agent Shaw or Marco Moretti found me. I managed to lose both Marco Moretti's crew and Agent Helen Shaw's black SUV in the crowded maze-like streets of the Garden District. I was alone, relying on public transport and constant vigilance. My immediate threat wasn't the Mafia's heir, it was the corrupt Marshal Agent Shaw. I had to find the lakefront asset immediately. I retrieved the address for the lakefront asset from the architect's blueprint. It was a massive modern penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Pontchartrain property that looked completely out of place among the historic New Orleans real estate. It was likely a cash-out location, not a historical property. I called Anya Sharma, the cybersecurity expert who had helped Ethan Bellwether expose the corporate corruption, using a scrambled VoIP line I set up. I knew Elias Vance would have given me a connection to trust. Anya, I need a favor from the architect's network, I whispered. I need real-time surveillance on two targets, Marco Moretti and Agent Helen Shaw. Anya, recognizing the urgency in my voice, quickly agreed, promising to piggyback onto the city's traffic camera grid. The lakefront infiltration. I reached the lakefront asset. It was a high-security residential tower. I couldn't use the architect's code here. This building was too new. I slipped into the underground parking garage and used my forensic science skills. I noticed a subtle pattern of dirt on the floor leading to a specific maintenance elevator, the elevator used by the building's few high-profile residents. I successfully bypassed the digital lock on the maintenance elevator and rode it up to the penthouse floor. The penthouse was stunning, empty, and silent. It was a holding place for the money, not a home. I searched for the final proof my father mentioned, the evidence of Eliza Vance's death. I found it in a walk-in safe hidden behind a wall of expensive custom bookshelves. The safe was biometric, requiring 2 separate scans. I realized the significance. My father, the master thief, wouldn't have built a safe unless he planned to share the contents. The 2 scans would be for him and his most trusted partner. The fingerprint and the reveal. I needed the fingerprints of my father, Damian Nolan. I used a sophisticated dust from my old kit to lift a latent print from the safe's metal edge. Scan 1, Damian Nolan. Access granted. I needed the second print. The only person my father trusted implicitly besides Eliza was his partner Elias Vance, the architect. I called Elias's burner phone, knowing Marco Moretti had it. A voice answered. Marco. I know you have, Elias, I said, my voice steady. I need his fingerprint for a second. If you refuse, I destroy the cipher right now. Marco laughed. You think I need his print? The architect has been talking, Cora. He's desperate. He gave us everything. Marco sent a high-resolution photograph to the burner phone, a picture of Elias Vance's hand pressed against a table, a clear print captured on the surface. I realized the horror. Elias Vance had cracked under pressure, giving the Mafia what they wanted. He had betrayed the partnership and risked my life. With a sinking heart, I used the print. Scan 2, Elias Vance. Access granted. The safe opened, revealing not cash, but a single official-looking document inside a sealed waterproof evidence bag, a U.S. Marshal's Internal Affairs report. The report detailed the final moments of Eliza Vance. It stated that Eliza was not killed in a car accident. She was shot and killed during a highly compromised WITSEC transfer in 2013, orchestrated by a mole who had infiltrated the protection program. The mole was paid a substantial sum to secure the location of the $300 million and eliminate the liability, Eliza Vance. The mole's name, redacted in black marker throughout the report, was only revealed at the very end, printed clearly under case officer in question. The name was Agent Helen Shaw. The standoff. My father's deepest fear was confirmed. The U.S. Marshals had killed his first wife, and the person who killed her was the woman who was supposed to protect me. Before I could process the shock, the service elevator doors opened. Agent Helen Shaw stood there, not in her official uniform, but in a tailored black suit, holding a suppressed pistol. You're not as subtle as your father, Cora, Shaw said, her voice smooth and chilling. I tracked the use of the maintenance elevator to this unit. The $300 million is tied to a network of corporate fraud that goes far beyond Moretti. I was sent to retrieve the asset and eliminate any loose ends, starting with Eliza, and now you. She gestured to the document in my hand. The report. Give it to me. Your father was a fool to think he could use that leverage against us. You killed Eliza, I whispered, the rage finally overriding the fear. I secured the asset. Shaw corrected me. I was paid handsomely by the architect's true employer, the people who actually owned Moretti's debt. Now where is the cipher? We need the full ledger of assets before the FBI gets involved. Suddenly the front door of the penthouse burst open. It was Marco Moretti, his face flushed with fury. He had tracked Shaw. The bitch is mine, Marco roared, spotting Shaw. She sold my family's assets to the feds. Shaw was caught between the mafia heir and me, the only person holding the physical evidence of her crime. The cipher isn't here, Marco, I said, speaking loudly, knowing I had to survive the crossfire. It's with the only person who hasn't betrayed anyone, my father. The standoff in the lakefront penthouse fractured into chaos. Marco Moretti wasn't interested in a clean arrest. He was driven by mafia blood feud. Agent Helen Shaw was motivated by self-preservation, needing to silence Marco and retrieve the incriminating internal affairs report. Marco, she's working for the people who bought your father's debt, I yelled, throwing the evidence bag containing the internal affairs report onto a marble countertop, hoping to draw their attention away from me. Both Marco and Shaw lunged for the evidence. Shaw, being closer, grabbed the report, but Marco tackled her, sending them both crashing through a glass coffee table. In the brief, violent melee, I scrambled toward the maintenance elevator, clutching the cipher journal and the broken compass USB. She's escaping! Marco roared, pinning Shaw down. Get the girl, Marco! She has the cipher! Shaw screamed back, but she was fighting for her life. Anya's intervention. I sealed myself in the elevator and descended, contacting Anya Sharma on the burner phone. Anya, I need a diversion at the lakefront tower immediately. They're fighting over an internal affairs report. The mole is Marshall Shaw. Confirmed. Deploying a localized traffic jam and power grid anomaly, Anya replied instantly. But Cora, I've got bad news. Elias Vance is no longer with Moretti. He was transferred an hour ago to a highly secured private facility. Marco is desperate because he lost his primary asset. The realization was stark. Elias Vance hadn't betrayed me to Moretti. He had been sold to a higher bidder, the very people who controlled Shaw. The location, Anya. Where is Elias now? It's not in the city. The coordinates point to an offshore barge being retrofitted near the mouth of the Mississippi River. It's registered to a holding company that matches the shell companies on the architect's blueprint. They're moving the assets, Cora. The assets weren't just the real estate or Elias. They were my father, Damian Nolan, and the $300 million ledger. Tracking the father. I had to find my father before the transfer went through. I realized the only person who knew my father's emotional weak spot was Eliza Vance, the wife he thought was dead. I looked at the locket with the initial E. I connected the locket to the broken compass USB, the architect's custom-built device. It was a long shot, but Elias had designed it for them to communicate. The locket's subtle scratch, the E, was a touch-activated trigger. A single cryptic message appeared on the laptop screen, written in Eliza's delicate handwriting. Damien always hides the escape key where the memory is strongest. Check the first ledger entry, the Pelican Club. Safe room wall. My father's emotional connection was tied to a physical location in the ledger. The Pelican Club. I drove to the Pelican Club, the first real estate asset listed in the cipher. It was a massive, crumbling, historically protected mansion in the Garden District, currently disguised as a non-profit social club. I gained entry using the blueprint's access code. The place was deserted, dusty, and clearly waiting for demolition. The clock tower was a vault. The Pelican Club was a secure holding cell. I found the hidden safe room. The door was secured by a heavy, old-fashioned combination lock. I searched the wall near the lock, looking for a break in the plaster, the memory. I found a faded, almost invisible set of initials carved into the plaster: DN plus EV, Damian Nolan plus Eliza Vance. The combination lock sequence matched the date of Eliza Vance's alleged death on the internal affairs report. My father had encoded his wife's tragedy into the lock. The safe door swung open. Inside, I didn't find money or another document, but I found my father, Damian Nolan. He was chained to a steel pipe, bruised but alive. The final confession. Cora. He whispered, his eyes wide with relief and terror. You shouldn't be here. You've activated the final phase. I rushed to him, checking the chains. I know everything, Dad. Shaw killed Eliza. You stole the $300 million to find the truth. I stole the money to buy the truth from the broker who hired Shaw. He corrected me, his voice weak. And I hid the master ledger here. Not the cipher, the full, unencrypted ledger that exposes the broker's entire network. He gestured to a small, nondescript container bolted to the wall. Marco captured me here and searched for the master ledger, but he didn't know the lock was tied to Eliza. The master ledger is the real prize, Cora. It connects the Moretti family to Wall Street, to DC, and to a global organization that uses WITCC as a smokescreen to eliminate threats. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. The broker has me. They have Elias. They need the master ledger to destroy the evidence. The moment they realize you have the cipher, they will execute both of us. Who is the broker, Dad, who hired Shaw? Damien took a ragged breath and whispered the name of the most powerful person in the American financial world, a name synonymous with legitimacy and untouchable wealth. Arthur Thorne. He runs the Thorne Development Group. He's the one who controls all the assets, including the defense contractors that framed Elias Vance. He's the one who ordered Eliza's death, and he's the one who is now holding the assets on the offshore barge. Arthur Thorne, the head of the empire that Elias Vance's partner Ethan Bellwether had just helped expose. The circle of corruption had closed the mafia's theft, was now directly linked to the corporate elite exposed in New York. My father Damian Nolan was weak but focused. The lock on his chains was complex, but with my small forensic toolkit, I managed to pick it in minutes, the skill coming back from years of suppression. The master ledger, he gasped, pointing to the container bolted to the wall. It's a quantum encrypted hard drive. The safe room was the perfect Faraday cage. It can only be activated with a unique two-factor code. He pulled a small metallic plate from his boot heel. The first code is on this plate. The second is your original WITSEC, assigned entry code, the life we left behind. I quickly entered the codes. The container hissed open, revealing a titanium-cased master ledger hard drive. This drive contains the full unencrypted list of names, bank accounts, and transactions that tie Arthur Thorne to the Moretti crime family and the WITSEC. Cover up, Damien explained, rubbing his wrists. It's the only thing that can expose him and free Elias. My father's primary goal had shifted from revenge for Eliza to survival and exposing the true power Arthur Thorne. The escape attempt. We had to escape the Pelican Club before Marco Moretti or Agent Helen Shaw traced me. As we reached the main entrance, the alarms blared. The building was sealed. Anya Sharma came online, her voice urgent. Cora security teams have sealed the perimeter. They're not Moretti. They're private military contractors. They're wearing Thorne Development Group badges. Arthur Thorne was using his private security force to seize the master ledger and silence us. We were forced to retreat into the old boiler room. I quickly connected the master ledger to my burner laptop, starting the decryption process. We need a distraction, Dad. We can't let them take this drive. My father looked at the sprawling, antiquated boiler system. Thorne's men won't expect a demolition expert to be hiding in here. I can rig the main steam pressure valve to blow the seals on the perimeter gates. It'll create a massive localized steam fog and jam their radio signals for 5 minutes. It was a risky, desperate plan, but our only chance. While my father expertly began rerouting the steam pipes, I focused on the laptop. The master ledger decryption. The master ledger's quantum encryption was the toughest I had ever seen. The screen displayed the decryption progress: 5%, 10%. The code Cora. What is the broker's true motive? My father yelled over the sound of straining pipes. As the decryption reached 25%, the ledger released a fragment of data, a detailed financial flowchart showing Arthur Thorne's control over Omnicorp. The chart revealed that Thorne had used the $300 million in mafia money as seed capital to purchase a controlling interest in Omnicorp, the defense contractor, at the heart of the corporate scandal. Thorne didn't want the money, Dad. He wanted the power the money could buy, I realized. He used the mafia's fortune to become the world's most powerful defense broker. Shaw's interception. Just as my father wrenched the main steam valve, the boiler room door burst inward. It wasn't Thorne's security. It was Agent Helen Shaw, pistol drawn, her face streaming with sweat and fury. Game over, Damien. I knew you'd come back for your final trophy, Shaw yelled, aiming at my father. The ledger is mine. I'll pin Eliza's murder on you and Thorne, and I walk away clean with the asset. Shaw had followed the master ledger's encrypted signal. Damien shoved me behind the massive boiler. Go, Cora. Use the steam. As Shaw fired, the steam valve blew with a deafening roar. A thick white fog of superheated steam instantly flooded the room. Shaw's shot went wide. I grabbed the laptop with the partially decrypted master ledger and dashed into the fog, leaving my father and Shaw trapped in the blinding, choking steam. Damien! I heard Shaw scream, followed by the muffled sound of a physical struggle. I had to leave my father behind, knowing that the master ledger was the only thing that could save him. The offshore link. I scrambled through the open perimeter gate, guided by Anya, who was now back online. They're converging on the Pelican Club, Cora. You have minutes before they track the laptop. I have the master ledger. The partial decrypt shows Arthur Thorne used the mafia money to take over Omnicorp. That explains the offshore barge, Anya replied. The barge is not a holding cell, Cora. It's a mobile data center. Thorne is using it to transfer the original unredacted data of the Omnicorp merger and Elias Vance's biotech patent outside of U.S. jurisdiction. He's moving the entire operation. The master ledger was the key to the past, but the offshore barge was the key to the future. Both my father and Elias Vance were being held there scheduled for elimination once Thorne completed the data transfer. Where's the barge headed, Anya? Toward international waters. You need to get to the New Orleans docks immediately. I've sent you a contact, a former colleague of the architect, specializing in maritime extraction. He'll meet you. I looked down at the master ledger. It was still decrypting, but I had enough evidence to prove Thorne's motive and expose the entire criminal hierarchy. I just needed to secure the final piece of the puzzle, the location of the Omnicorp data, and the full truth about Thorne's broker. I raced through the docks of New Orleans, the air thick with salt and diesel fuel. I was carrying the master ledger, the key to exposing Arthur Thorne, and was desperate to stop the offshore data transfer and rescue my father and Elias Vance. I met the contact Anya arranged, a former marine engineer and corporate security analyst named Marcus. He was gruff, efficient, and clearly loyal to the architect's network. The barge, the MV Aegis, is 7 miles offshore, approaching the edge of international waters, Marcus explained, pointing to a rugged speedboat tied to the pier. It's Thorne's mobile data center, heavily armored. We have about 45 minutes before the data transfer is complete and Thorne's men clean house. Thorne is the broker who hired Shaw, I told him. He used the mafia money to buy Omnicorp and weaponize Elias's biotech patent. Then we're not just saving people, Cora. We're seizing a future threat, Marcus replied, already powering up the boat. Thorne's goal isn't just power, it's secrecy. We need to find the main data server and stop the upload. On board the MV Aegis. We reached the MV Aegis under the cover of the pre-dawn darkness. Marcus, using his knowledge of offshore security, rigged a silent entry onto the barge's lower maintenance deck. The barge was eerily quiet, staffed by heavily armed private contractors wearing the Thorne Development Group crest. We found the hostages in a secured, temperature-controlled cargo hold. Damian Nolan and Elias Vance were both restrained but alive. Cora, you shouldn't have come, my father warned, his voice cracking. The master ledger is running. I confirmed, showing him the partially decrypted drive. We know Arthur Thorne is the broker. He used your money to buy Omnicorp. Elias Vance, the architect, looked grim. Thorne is finishing his work. The main server vault is 2 decks up. He is preparing to upload the unredacted Omnicorp/Aegis Tech data and then remotely wipe all US-based servers, eliminating the last of the digital evidence. The transfer code. Thorne needs a final complex code to initiate the transfer. He'll be here, Damian stated. The data vault trap. We raced up to the main data center, a fortified room at the heart of the barge. Marcus neutralized the 2 guards outside. Inside, the room was dominated by a huge server rack humming with power. And standing in front of it, keying a sequence into the control panel, was the ultimate architect of the corruption, Arthur Thorne. He was not the ruthless CEO I expected, but a cold, meticulous man, completely in control. I should have known the asset's daughter would be as persistent as the thief, Thorne said, turning his gaze resting on me. You've cost me a great deal, Cora, but the cost will be worth it. The transfer code is the final stage. He held up a small crystal-encased fob. This is the quantum key. It generates the code only once. Once the transfer is complete, the whole history, the mafia, the WICC, betrayal, and your father's theft will be erased. Thorne smiled, a chilling expression. Your father was sloppy. He used the master ledger to find the truth, but I'm going to use the truth to buy the world. The final code. Thorne raised the quantum key to the server. I had to stop him. Where is Agent Shaw, Thorne? Did you kill her? Thorne scoffed. Agent Shaw was a disposable asset. She served her purpose in eliminating Eliza and guarding Damian. She was eliminated once she outlived her usefulness by Marco Moretti, who believed he was avenging his father, unaware that Marco himself was merely a distraction for the FBI. The bitter irony was complete. Marco and Shaw had destroyed each other, clearing the path for Thorne's final move. As Thorne activated the key, the server began its final countdown, T-minus 60 seconds to data upload. Marcus, cut the power, I yelled. Marcus tried to sever the main power conduit, but Thorne's security system was too advanced. I looked at my father and Elias in the doorway. Dad, the master ledger is the key. We need to stop the transfer. My father, the former consigliere, understood instantly. The master ledger isn't just data, Cora. It's an encryption shell. Inject it into the server. I rushed to the main server. I plugged the still decrypting master ledger hard drive into the emergency port. The ledger's decryption is only at 70 DAT. It's incomplete. It doesn't matter, Elias shouted. The quantum encryption signature itself, the same signature that locked the ledger, will recognize and reject the transfer of the Omnicorp data. It will create a localized virus. The collapse. The master ledger's powerful encryption shell slammed into Thorne's server. The room instantly plunged into darkness. The transfer countdown froze. System alert, foreign quantum signature detected. initiating data purge and system collapse. The master ledger had gone live not to decrypt, but to act as a catastrophic digital virus. Thorne's mobile data center was destroying itself. Thorne roared in frustration and lunged at me. Marcus intercepted him, and the two men crashed against the server rack. "You've ruined everything!" Thorne screamed, trying to reach the master ledger drive. I pulled the ledger drive out just as the server vault exploded in a shower of sparks and smoke. The entire barge's system went dead. We had stopped the global data transfer, but the master ledger was corrupted by the clash of quantum signatures. The master ledger was dead. The explosion of the server vault rendered the MV Aegis dead in the water. Arthur Thorne was knocked unconscious by the force of the blast. Marcus quickly secured him and the remaining security personnel. We had stopped the data transfer and rescued Damian Nolan and Elias Vance. But the master ledger, the titanium hard drive, containing the key to the entire criminal network, was now a smoking, magnetically corrupted shell. The full list of names. "It's gone," I whispered, staring at the ruined drive. "We have the cipher, the blueprint, and Thorne, but the undeniable proof is destroyed." "Not gone, Cora," Elias Vance corrected, coughing from the smoke. "The master ledger's quantum signature may have been wiped, but it existed long enough to complete one task, the localized data injection." He pointed to a blinking red light on the server console, which was operating on auxiliary battery power. "When you injected the master ledger, it didn't just cause a virus. It forced a fragment of its own data, a digital footprint of the entire transaction history, onto the local barge hard drive, which was designed to back up the transfer logs. It's the only remaining record." The FBI arrival. Before we could recover the fragment, the U.S. Coast Guard and a sleek FBI vessel surrounded the barge. The silence was broken by the powerful thrum of federal helicopters. Agent Robert Sterling, the lead investigator for the FBI's Organized Crime Division, and a name I recognized from the corporate scandal involving Ethan Bellwether, boarded the barge with a contingent of armed agents. "Agent Sterling," I said, stepping forward, holding the ruined master ledger, "we have Arthur Thorne and the evidence of a massive conspiracy linking the Moretti family, WITCC, corruption, and global corporate fraud." Sterling's eyes went straight to the corrupted hard drive. "We appreciate your assistance, Ms. Nolan. We'll take custody of the prisoner and the evidence." He nodded to his agents, who immediately placed Thorne and the captured security personnel in cuffs. I knew I couldn't trust the FBI yet, especially with the WITSEC corruption still hanging over the federal agencies. "The evidence isn't complete, Agent," I insisted, pointing to the blinking console light. "The final localized data fragment is on the server's local hard drive. It proves Thorne orchestrated the murder of Eliza Vance and stole the Omnicorp SAS Aegis Tech patent." Sterling hesitated for a moment, his gaze sharp and calculating. "We will secure all data on the barge, Miss Nolan." The final code. As the FBI agents swarmed the control room, I made a quick, desperate move. I rushed to the server console and typed in the last code. I knew Eliza Vance's death date, the combination my father used on the safe room. The console, designed to accept multiple security passwords, recognized the sequence. A hidden terminal window flashed open, displaying a single short message: "File clean slate, TXT, LOC, local drive, archive." My father hadn't just used the date as a lock combination. He and Elias had set a final trigger code into the barge's system. I copied the file onto the broken compass USB, the architect's drive, just as Agent Sterling moved toward me. "That's enough, Miss Nolan," Sterling ordered, grabbing my arm. "The evidence is federal property." I handed him the broken compass USB. "The final data is on that drive, Agent. The full story of the clean slate." The bargain. The FBI took us all back to the mainland. We were separated and interrogated for 48 grueling hours. Finally, Agent Sterling met with my father, Elias, and me. "The data you provided on the broken compass USB is highly sensitive." Sterling admitted, his expression neutral. "It contains a single file, cleanslate.txt. This file is a manifesto detailing how Arthur Thorne planned to use the WITCC program as a recruitment tool for his criminal enterprise, and how he murdered Eliza Vance to secure the Omnicorp patent." He continued, laying out the bargain. "Thorne is facing multiple federal charges. Marco Moretti is still at large but neutralized as a major threat. However, the WITCC program's integrity is paramount. If the public learns that a U.S. Marshal murdered a protected witness and guarded a mafia thief, the entire program collapses." I understood the compromise. The federal government needed a clean exit. "What is the deal, Agent Sterling?" I asked. "Your father, Damian Nolan, will revert to the original narrative, the hero witness who risked his life to testify against Sal Moretti and stop Arthur Thorne's massive fraud. All charges against him for the theft of the $300 million will be dropped, deemed essential to the investigation. And me, Cora Nolan, will be placed in a new permanent WITCC program under the highest security. You get a new life, a new identity, and the freedom to pursue your forensic science career. But the master ledger, the cipher, the blueprint, and all knowledge of Agent Helen Shaw's actions must remain a classified federal secret. My father and Elias looked at me. It was the only way to gain their freedom, safety, and a chance at a real life, but it meant accepting the lie. I looked at the broken compass USB in Sterling's hand. I knew I had copied the cleanslate.txt file onto my personal burner drive before handing over the official one. I held the real security. We accept, I said, meeting Sterling's gaze. The story ends with the hero witness, and the mafia's greatest thief gets a clean slate. Epilogue, the new beginning. 6 months later, the press reports detail the conviction of Arthur Thorne and the final dismantling of the Moretti criminal network, all thanks to the testimony of hero witness Damian Nolan. My father and Elias Vance are released into a new secure WITSEC location, finally free and safe. I am Clara Thorne, my new identity. The cruel irony not lost on me, enrolled in a top forensic science program in Seattle. I have my life back, but it's built on a foundation of classified secrets. I look at my burner phone. The file clean slate TXT is there, the undeniable truth of the WWITSEC. Corruption and the names of every power broker implicated in Thorne's final scheme. I didn't expose the truth entirely, but I secured it. I had the cipher, the blueprint, and the final word. The safe house secret was buried, but I was the one who held the key to the tomb.